Picture this. It's just before sunrise. You're standing at the helm of your own boat, a mug of coffee warming your hands, and the only sound is the slow, steady beat of a single diesel pushing you toward a horizon you've been chasing for years. No marina noise, no crowds, no schedule. Just you, the water, and a vessel built to carry you anywhere you point the bow. That is the promise of the trawler, and it is one of the most seductive ideas in all of boating. But here's what the glossy brochures will never tell you. The trawler is also the single most misunderstood purchase a boater can make. Every season, I watch people fall in love with the look of these boats, sign the paperwork, and then discover 6 months later that they bought the wrong hull, the wrong size, or the wrong builder for the way they actually cruise. And in this world, a mistake like that is not a few $1,000s. It can be 100,000, sometimes far more, vanishing the moment you take delivery. So before you spend that kind of money, give me the next 20 minutes. I have spent years around these boats, walking the docks, talking to owners, sitting through surveys that went very well and a few that went very badly. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what a trawler is, how to choose the right hull for your plans, which builders deserve your attention in 2026, and the costly traps that catch first-time buyers again and again. Let's get into it. First, let's be clear about what a trawler actually is, because the word gets thrown around loosely. A true trawler is a long-range, fuel-efficient motor yacht built for endurance rather than speed. It borrows its shape and its philosophy from the working fishing boats that spent weeks at sea in all conditions. Where a sport cruiser is designed to get up on plane and race across the bay, a trawler is designed to settle into the water and keep going, hour after hour, day after day, sipping fuel and carrying you in comfort. That difference in purpose changes everything about the boat, from the shape of the hull below the waterline to the size of the tanks to the way the interior is laid out for living rather than just for weekends. The trade is simple, and it is honest. You give up speed, and in return you gain range, efficiency, sea kindliness, and genuine living space. A trawler will not thrill you on a fast run across open water. What it will do is take you somewhere far away, keep you comfortable when the weather turns, and let you stay aboard for weeks or months at a time without feeling cramped. That is why trawlers are the boat of choice for liveaboards, for serious cruising couples, and for anyone planning routes like the Great Loop or a slow season working down a coastline. If that vision speaks to you, then the rest of this video is going to matter a great deal. Now we get to the most important decision you will make, and most buyers get it backwards. They pick a builder first and worry about the hull later. You should do the opposite. The hull is the foundation of the entire boat, and it falls into two broad camps. The first is the full displacement hull. This is the classic trawler shape, with a rounded bottom that pushes through the water rather than climbing on top of it. It is the most efficient form ever devised for moving slowly and steadily, and it is the only hull that gives you true ocean crossing range on modest fuel. Larger full-displacement boats from builders like Nordhaven and Celine even carry a bulbous bow, that bulge you see below the waterline on big ships, which reduces drag and softens the boat's motion. The catch is that a full-displacement boat has a top speed governed by its waterline length, and that is usually somewhere between 7 and 9 knots. It will not go faster no matter how much throttle you give it, and it can feel ponderous in tight marinas, especially with a single engine. The second camp is the semi-displacement hull, sometimes called a slow-fast. This shape can travel at efficient trawler speeds when you want range, but it can also lift partly out of the water and run at 15, 20, even 30 knots when conditions and your wallet allow. That flexibility is enormously appealing, particularly for coastal cruisers who want to outrun a weather window or simply get home before dark. The price you pay is fuel. The moment you push a semi-displacement hull toward those higher speeds, your consumption climbs steeply and your range collapses. So the honest question is this: will you genuinely cross oceans or hop coastlines? If you are doing long offshore passages, full displacement is your friend. If you are coastal cruising and value the option of speed, a semi-displacement boat may suit your life far better. Closely tied to the hull is the question of one engine or two. A single-engine, full-displacement trawler is the most fuel-efficient setup you can buy, and it's what serious passage makers often choose. But a single engine demands respect in close quarters, and it means learning to handle a large, heavy boat with one source of thrust, usually helped along by a bow thruster. Twin engines give you redundancy, which is reassuring far from help, and they make docking far easier, but they cost more to maintain and they drink more fuel. There's no universally correct answer. There's only the answer that fits your skills, your nerves, and the waters you intend to cruise. Let's talk about range, because this is where dreams and reality collide. A trawler's range is not a single number stamped on a spec sheet. It is the product of three things working together: the hull form, the fuel tankage, and the engine and how hard you run it. A full displacement boat with 1,000 gallons of fuel run at 7 knots might cover 2,000 nautical miles or more without stopping. Push that same fuel into a semi-displacement boat run at 18 knots, and you might see 200 or 300 miles before you're hunting for a fuel dock. Both can be the right boat. They're simply built for different journeys. My advice is to be ruthlessly honest about how you'll actually use the boat. I meet far too many buyers who pay a premium for transoceanic range they'll never use, and just as many who buy a beautiful coastal boat while quietly dreaming of crossing to distant islands the hull will never safely reach. Match the range to the voyages you'll really take, not the ones you'll imagine on a winter evening. Look closely at fuel capacity, water capacity, and waste tankage together, because a boat that can travel 1,000 miles but only carries enough fresh water for 3 days is not really self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is the whole point of this kind of boat, so Dzogit is a complete system. There's one more piece of the comfort puzzle that buyers underestimate, and that is stabilization. Trawlers have no sails to steady them, and they sit deep in the water, so without help they can roll uncomfortably in a beam sea, the kind of side-on swell that turns a pleasant passage into a miserable one. Good stabilization is the difference between a crew that arrives rested and a crew that swears off boating forever. The traditional solution is active fin stabilizers, which are underwater wings that swing to counter the roll. They work beautifully on way. The modern favorite is the gyro stabilizer, with Seakeeper being the name you'll hear most often. A spinning gyroscope inside a sealed housing counters the roll, and crucially, it works even at anchor, which is where you spend much of your time. There are also older passive systems like paravanes, sometimes called flopper stoppers, and flume tanks. When you inspect a trawler, find out exactly what stabilization it has and confirm that it works, because retrofitting a serious system later is expensive and disruptive. All right, you understand the bones of the boat. Now, let's walk the docks together and look at the builders that matter in 2026, starting at the top of the mountain. Nordhaven. If trawlers have a gold standard, it's Nordhaven. This is the builder serious ocean crossers trust with their lives, and for good reason. A Nordhaven 40 was the first production recreational powerboat to circumnavigate the globe, a 6-month voyage completed in the early 2000s, and that pedigree runs through everything they build. These are full-displacement passage acres designed to take you anywhere on Earth in relative comfort and to bring you home again. The smaller models, like the 41, pack genuine transoceanic ability into a manageable size, and they typically arrive turnkey, with stabilizers, a bow thruster, full electronics, a life raft, an inverter, and a generator as standard rather than as expensive options. Step up through the range to boats like the 59, the 71, and the truly self-sufficient 96, and you're looking at vessels built for a couple to live aboard and cross oceans without a crew. If that vision speaks to you, then the rest of this video is going to matter a great deal. Grand Banks is one of the most storied names in the trawler world, and the brand has gone through a fascinating transformation. For decades, Grand Banks meant classic, traditional, slow trawlers with gorgeous teak joinery, the boats your mind probably pictures when you hear the word trawler. Today, the modern line has reinvented itself. Models like the 54, the 60, and the flagship 85 now use a clever hull form that lets these elegant boats run at genuinely high speeds, in some cases beyond 30 knots, while still cruising efficiently and tracking level and sea-kindly through a chop. They have become some of the most refined, fast trawlers money can buy, with lavish interiors and craftsmanship that few builders can match. What you need to know as a buyer is that the era of the boat matters enormously for value. The older, traditional Grand Banks models depreciated heavily in their early years, sometimes 25 to 30% in the first 5 seasons. The newer builds, equipped with modern Cummins diesels, joystick docking, and updated electronics, hold their value far better, often settling around 75 to 80% after 8 years. So, if you love the Grand Banks look and feel, decide first whether you want the classic slow cruiser, which can be a wonderful and affordable entry into the lifestyle, or the modern fast trawler, which is a serious investment in a very capable boat. They are almost 2 different boats wearing the same respected badge. Beneteau Swift Trawler. If Nordham sits at the summit, the Beneteau Swift Trawler is the on-ramp that has brought more people into this lifestyle than almost any other boat. Beneteau is the largest boat builder in the world, and the Swift Trawler line, currently spanning roughly the 35, the 41, and the 48, along with the larger Grand Trawler models, has been hugely popular for years. These are semi-displacement boats, true slow fasts, with the ability to cruise economically at trawler speeds and then push past 20 knots when you want to cover ground quickly. The Swift Trawler 48, for example, runs twin Cummins diesels, can touch the mid-20s at the top end, and still offers around 1,000 miles of range when you slow down. It sits in a lovely sweet spot, small enough for a couple to run themselves, fast enough for a weekend dash, and efficient enough for real coastal cruising. I want to be straight with you because experienced cruisers will be. In the trawler hierarchy, Beneteau is considered an entry-level builder, and many owners eventually move up to heavier, more rugged boats from the likes of Grand Banks, Katie Krogan, or Fleming. These are production boats built to a price, and they are not designed for serious ocean crossings. But that is not a criticism so much as a clarification. For the buyer who wants comfortable, versatile coastal cruising, easy handling, modern systems, and strong value for the money, the Swift Trawler is genuinely hard to beat. New for 2026, Beneteau is debuting the Grand Trawler 63, a long-range flagship that cruises efficiently around 9 knots with impressive economy. If you are starting out and you want a boat you'll enjoy without spending a fortune, this is one of the smartest places to begin. Katie Krogan. Katie Krogan occupies a special place in the hearts of serious cruising couples, and it deserves a close look from anyone planning long, self-reliant voyages. These are proper full-displacement passenger makers, built with real attention to quality, efficiency, and the practical realities of living aboard far from home. The numbers tell the story. A Katie Krogan 50 Open can cruise non-stop at 6 knots for around 5,000 nautical miles, which is the kind of range that opens up genuine ocean crossings. The 52 is an all-oceans boat that suits a voyaging couple beautifully, with the option of twin engines for those who want the redundancy on a long passage. What I admire about Katie Krogan is that the boats are designed by people who clearly understand cruising rather than just selling. The layouts work at sea, the headroom is generous, the galleys are built for cooking real meals on long trips, and the build quality earns the trust of owners who put thousands of miles under the keel. They are not cheap and they hold their value well, but they often represent a more attainable path to true blue water capability than the very top tier. If your ambitions are serious but your budget has limits, Katie Krogan belongs firmly on your shortlist. Celine. Celine is the builder I point budget-conscious passenger makers toward when they want full displacement, ocean-capable boats without the very highest price tag. These are robust, true blue water trawlers, often fitted with that efficient bulbous bow, and they have carried many owners across oceans safely and comfortably. The appeal is straightforward. A Celine gives you a great deal of the capability you would get from the premium builders, but the entry price and the total cost of ownership tend to be meaningfully lower. There is a trade, and you should understand it before you sign anything. A Celine will generally depreciate somewhat faster than a Nordham, perhaps around 10% a year, which means your money is not protected quite as well over time. But here's the nuance that clever buyers appreciate. Because you paid less to begin with, your total dollars lost over the years of ownership can actually be lower than they would be on a more prestigious boat, even with the steeper percentage drop. For a long-range cruiser who plans to keep the boat and use it hard rather than flip it, Celine can be a genuinely shrewd choice. Ranger tugs. Not everyone needs an ocean crosser, and that brings us to one of the most charming corners of this market. Ranger tugs are light trawlers, sometimes called pocket cruisers, and they have become enormously popular for very good reasons. They are simple to operate, inexpensive to maintain compared to the big passenger makers, and small enough that a single person or a couple can handle them with confidence. Models like the R43 Command Bridge are perfectly happy ambling along at a 7-knot trawler pace, sipping fuel, and equally able to pick up to around 18 knots when you want to move quickly. The smaller models are even trailerable, which opens up cruising grounds you could never reach by water alone. For first-time buyers, for retirees easing into the lifestyle, and especially for anyone tackling the Great Loop, a Ranger tug can be the ideal boat. It offers a real taste of the trawler experience, comfort, range, and the joy of slow travel at a fraction of the cost and complexity of a full-size passenger maker. Do not dismiss the small boats. Many seasoned cruisers will tell you that the best boat is the one you actually use, and the simplicity of a light trawler gets a lot of people out on the water who otherwise would still be dreaming. Other builders worth knowing. A few more names deserve a place on your radar before we move on. Fleming is a premium builder whose boats sit alongside the very best for quality and seakeeping, beloved by owners who graduate from production boats. Outer Reef builds rugged, semi-custom long-range yachts with spacious layouts and serious capability. Bering Yachts works in steel and aluminum and builds genuinely expedition-grade vessels for owners who want to go to remote and demanding places. North Pacific offers semi-custom pilot house trawlers built around comfort and efficiency for first-time owners, and the Turkish-built Sirena brings a fresh Mediterranean flavor to the fast trawler crowd. None of these will be the right fit for everyone, but each one is a serious builder, and if a particular boat catches your eye, it's well worth your time to dig deeper. Now, let's step back and talk about the market itself in 2026, because timing and context matter. The good news is that there's a healthy supply of quality used trawlers out there, with the bulk of listings sitting somewhere between $200,000 and $600,000, and plenty of stock above and below that range. New trawlers run from the low hundreds of thousands for compact models up past $10 million for large expedition yachts. The clear trend this year is toward efficiency and flexibility. Buyers want boats that handle a quick weekend and a long cruise equally well, and hybrid propulsion is moving from novelty toward the mainstream, with several award-winning designs now built around battery and electric systems as standard. Shallow draft exploration, quieter running, and clever, flexible layouts for multi-generational cruising are all driving demand. The lesson for you is to think about resale even as you buy. The features the market wants today are the ones that will protect your investment tomorrow. Once you have found the boat, here is the step that matters more than any other, and it is the one buyers are most tempted to rush. Get a proper survey. There are two kinds, and the difference is critical. A pre-purchase survey is the comprehensive buyer-focused inspection that digs into structure, mechanical systems, safety equipment, and overall condition. A condition and valuation survey is the lighter one that exists mainly to satisfy your lender and your insurer. If you are buying a used trawler, you want a thorough pre-purchase survey carried out by an independent surveyor that you hire and pay, not one suggested by the seller. Insist on a sea trial as part of it, with the engines run hard and the systems exercised. Confirm that the hull identification number matches the documentation, review the maintenance records in detail, check the engine hours against the apparent condition, and pay close attention to often neglected items like the seacocks and through-hull fittings. A good survey can save you from a six-figure mistake, and the few $1,000s it costs is the best money you will spend in the entire process. Finally, let me leave you with the mistakes I see again and again so you can sidestep every one of them. The biggest, by far, is falling in love with a boat before you have honestly defined how you will use it. Start with the cruising, then choose the boat, never the other way around. The second is buying too much boat. A larger trawler is not just a bigger purchase price, it's a bigger dockage fees, bigger fuel bills, bigger haul-out costs, and a bigger handful in tight quarters. Buy the smallest boat that genuinely meets your needs, not the biggest one you can finance. The third mistake is underestimating the true cost of ownership, which includes maintenance, insurance, moorage, and the steady drip of upgrades. A useful rule of thumb is to budget around 10% of the purchase price every year just to keep a boat like this running properly. The fourth is ignoring stabilization and discovering too late how unpleasant a rolling passage can be. And the fifth, the one that breaks my heart every time, is skipping or skimping on the survey to save a little money or to win a bidding war. Never, ever do that. So there it is. The Trawler can absolutely deliver that sunrise at the helm, that slow journey to a far horizon, that life lived close to the water. But only if you choose with your head as clearly as you choose with your heart. Decide how you will really cruise, pick the hull that fits those plans, choose a builder whose reputation matches your ambitions and your budget, and never close the deal without a rigorous survey. Do that, and you will not just own a trawler, you will own the right one. And that's the boat that turns a dream into 1,000 happy days on the water. If this helped clarify your thinking, tell me in the comments which trawler is at the top of your list and what waters you are planning to cruise. I read every one, and I would love to know where your horizon is. Fair winds, and I'll see you on the water.